dear viewers. Welcome to this session of Quran for Ramadan. Today we'll be studying a passage. This is a passage from a very, very important area of the Quran. It is something that we all would relish, something to do with charity and how we can become generous human beings. So, these set of verses they belong to Surah Al Imran, which is the third surah of the Quran, and to be precise, in fact, I'm so sorry, this is Surah Baqarah that we're going to read today, and this is a passage from Surah Baqarah, verses 262 to 265. So we start off by reading the text and its translation. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. الذين ينفقون أموالهم في سبيل الله ثم لا يتبعون ما أنفقوا منا ولا أذى لهم أجرهم عند ربهم ولا خوف عليهم ولا هم يحزنون قول معروف خير من صدقة يتبعها أذى والله غني حليم. Those who spend their wealth in the way of God then do not follow this spending by reminders of their generosity or by hurting others, have their reward with their Lord. And they shall have nothing to fear there, nor shall they ever be sorrowful. A kind word and at unpleasant instances a little forgiveness is better than charity followed by inflicting hurt. And you should know that God is self-sufficient from such charity. On such an attitude from you, he could have deprived you. However, such is he that along with this, he is very gracious. So these are one of the pitfalls of charity that we might come across, and it's like a warning, a small precaution, so to speak, that we must all observe, and that is that whenever we spend on someone, we should not remind that person that we had been charitable to that person in the past. So this is like expressing our magnanimity, the fact that we were generous, and when we express ourselves in this way, we know that this is a cause of hurt for the other person, because now we express our favor. We tell that person that, remember, we were kind to you, we were generous to you. So these reminders are very hurtful to people. So if we have to spend on people, the best way to spend on people is to just keep that information between you and your God. If you start inflicting harm and these statements, harsh statements on the person to whom you have been kind, it's going to hurt that person. So remember, one of the most important things in the Quran that we come across is self-esteem. So in no way should this self-esteem be sacrificed. People who are in need, their self-esteem is already compromised. And if a person further compromises their self-esteem by letting them know that I have been kind to you and I have been generous to you, then this, of course, is something which is unbecoming. So God says that if you do this, then you are actually going to lose the reward of your charity. So instead of behaving like this, it is much better that you just keep this between you and your God. And whenever something happens in which maybe the person who is asking for help, the person who is in need, he or she might say something that might be a little unpleasant, or maybe that person is a little insistent. So the Quran says that on such occasions, don't be hurtful, don't be rude to that person, don't be impetuous in any way, because that is something that is really going to be it's not going to do well regarding the psyche of that person. As it is compromised. So the fact is that as far as the Quran is concerned, that you have to be absolutely someone who does something purely for the sake of God. So that is why the words are الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ لَا يُتْبِعُونَ مَا أَنْفَقُوا. So they spend in the way of God, and then they do not follow this spending by reminders of their generosity. So this is a very unbecoming character that at times we might express, that we make that person realize that we were generous to him. And as the Quran says, قَوْلٌ مَعْرُوفٌ وَمَغْفِرَةٌ خَيْرٌ مِّن صَدَقَةٍ يَتْبَعُهَا أَذًى. Then if you're not able to spend on someone, if you're not able to help someone, then a little forgiveness at this time is better than charity followed by inflicting hurt, by saying bad words, or maybe by scolding that person. That is absolutely not something which should be done. And the Quran says that if something like this happens, Wallahu Ghaniyun Halim, You'll find that God is very gracious to you. He'll forgive you. But remember that this is something that you should be specially beware of, that whenever you find people who are pestering you, who are bothering you, who are insistent in their needs and demanding from you, then it is better to politely refuse them and forgive them if they are a little harsh in their expression, because God is someone who's going to forgive you as well. And then it is said, Ya ayyuhallazina amanu la tubtilu sadaqatikum bil manni wal aza. Believers, do not waste your charity by reminders of generosity. So you see, reminders of generosity, they are something that hurt people. Now it is once again, this whole topic is taken up because it seems that this is something that plagues our charity often, that we remind people of our generosity. And now look what the Quran has called this such reminder. It says, La tubtilu sadaqatikum bil manni wal azab, that when you inflict other person by this hurt, that you remind that person that I was generous to you, then the Quran says that this is like wasting your charity. Tubtilu sadaqatikum. And it's not going to earn you any benefit. It's like causing hurt to that person. And then a beautiful example is given, and that example shows how this spending is going to go waste. It says, Kallazi yunfiku malahu ri'a an-nas wala yu'minuna billahi wala yu'minu billahi wa bil yawmil wa billahi wal yawmil akhir. فمثله كمثل صفوان عليه تراب فأصابه وابل فتركه صلدا لا يقدرون على شيء مما كسبوا والله لا يهدي القوم الكافرين. Which means, believers, do not waste your charity by reminders of generosity and by hurting others, like those who spend their wealth to show off, before others and believe neither in God nor in the last day. So the example of such people is like a large rock covered with soil. Then a heavy shower falls upon it and leaves it hard and bare. On the day of judgment, they will gain nothing from what they earned, and in reality, God never guides such ungrateful people. So people who spend by reminding people of their generosity, about them, it is said that it is like showing off. You are not, the intent is to show off, the intent is to express your magnanimity, and this is not going to fare well with God. And the example of such a person is that, as you can see, has been clearly given, that it is like a person who, when you find that there's a lot of rain on a large covered rock with soil, you find that that rain actually, or that heavy shower, that just blows away the dust or the soil over it, and it just leaves it bare and hard. So the example of such people who spend to show off and who spend to make other people realize that they have spent on them is like the shower that's just going to waste away that charity. The soil that is on a rock is just going to be bare, and it's just going to be there as it is, bare and hard. And just as that bare and hard rock is not going to bear any fruit, so their own spending is not going to bear any fruit, because their spending was like something very superficial. A heavy shower just blew it away. And on the day of judgment, they will gain nothing from what they have earned. In reality, God never guides such ungrateful people. And then, as is the case with the Quran, we get an example at the very onset of people who have a different attitude, in fact, an opposite attitude. So about them it is said, وَمَثَلُ الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ أَمْوَالَهُمُ ابْتِغَاءَ مَرْضَاتِ اللَّهِ وَتَثْبِيتًا مِنْ أَنفُسِهِمْ كَمَثَلِ جَنَّةٍ بِرَبْوَةٍ أَصَابَهَا وَابِلٌ فَأَتَتْ أُكُلَهَا ضِعْفَيْنِ فَإِنْ لَمْ يُصِبْهَا وَابِلٌ فَطَلٌّ وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ بَصِيرٌ. The example of those who spend their wealth to win the pleasure of God and to firmly make themselves adhere to the truth is that of an orchard which is on a high and level ground. If a heavy shower falls upon it, it yields up twice its normal produce. And even if a heavy shower does not fall upon it, a drizzle proves sufficient. Keep this example in mind and rest assured that God is seeing whatever you do. So you see, from this beautiful example, it is explained that people who don't spend to show off, who don't spend to make other people realize that they have spent on them, but their spending is just for the sake of God. As you can see, ibtigha'a mardatillah, just to seek the pleasure of God, wa tasbita min anfusihim, and also to make them firmly adhere to the truth. So this is what they have in mind, that they would always stick to the truth, seek the truth, and side by the truth. And at the same time, they would like to win the pleasure of God. When such people spend, then the spending of such people is that like that of an orchard which is on a high ground. And if a heavy shower falls upon it, it yields twice, which means that such is the nature of their spending, that the more you spend, the more it will yield. And even if the spending is little, then yield will still be sufficient to bear fruit from that orchard. فَآتَتْ أُكُلَهَا ضِعْفَيْنِ, that it will still provide, it would be still be sufficient. And therefore we have to keep in mind this and rest assured that God is seeing whatever you do. So whatever we can do for the sake of God, for the cause of God, in whatever way we can, is something which is always a great blessing. So you can clearly see, dear viewers, that this passage has given us a beautiful example and a guideline where we should be absolutely aware of that some of the things that we should not do, some of the pitfalls of spending in the way of God, and some of the areas that we have to be absolutely careful about. So another thing, although not mentioned here, but if we look at some of the other verses which are found in the Quran, then we'll see that what is also mentioned here in the Quran is that at times we have little to spend for the cause of God. At times we do shy away because the amount we have is not much. So it is here that the Quran tells us that don't shy away. Whatever you have for the cause of God, whatever you have saved up for the cause of God, it might be a teeny weeny, itsy bitsy, a small drop in the ocean, but still that is going to be something that's going to speak for you, because this is what you could afford at that time. You don't have to wait for your coffers to fill. You don't have to wait for a lot of money to come your way and then you'll spend. No, it's the time that is the real thing. It is your own situation, whatever the situation is, whatever your state is, whatever you can spare for God's cause, that should be done. The second important thing which we can find, which has found mentioned in the Quran regarding the etiquette of spending, is that one of the most important things that we have to realize is that people who have a lot of self-esteem, people who have a lot of self-respect, they will seldom come and ask for their needs. They'd rather sleep empty stomach at night and not ask. So a very large part of our society consists of such people. However, because of this professional beggary which is rampant in our society, we think that these are the people mostly who are in need, because they are insistent in their begging and they come and ask for their needs, and mostly these are professional beggars. But the Quran says that a very large part of the people are those who would not come to you, and you have to go and reach out to them. So as individuals, it is our responsibility to spot such people who have such self-esteem that they would never come and ask for their needs. It is rather we who have to go after them and find them. And I can tell you that if we have the eye, then that person like this might be right under our nose. He or she might be someone, maybe in our siblings, maybe in our friends, maybe amongst our neighbors. So it's just a question of looking out for such people. And the second most important thing which the Quran has mentioned in Surah Hashr, that is also something that's like a benchmark. It's something that we can really look up to. It's something like the pinnacle of spending that comes to my mind. And the Quran has mentioned it by the words "Yusiruna ala anfusihim walau kana bihim khasasa," which means that there are individuals who might be in need themselves, and here comes someone else who would also have the same need or maybe something equal. And in spite of being in need, they actually give preference to the person who has come to them for his need, and they just give it away. So this is one of the outstanding things that we can ever do. That there's one thing that we have spare money and we give it for the cause of God. So that's not that difficult a thing to do. But if you don't have spare money, in fact, you have just enough for your own self, just to fulfill your own immediate need. And here comes someone who finds that he or she is also has the same need, and someone comes to you in this regard. So the Quran says, "Yusiruna ala anfusihim walau kana bihim khasasa," that the believers are those, or the top-notch believers are those who at times withhold their own needs and they spend on other people. And this, of course, can be termed as the pinnacle of charity. So with this, we come to an end to today's discussion, and now we can move towards the Q&A session.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. What a wonderful session. Thank you so much for your wisdom. I have your first question. Asad Mirza, please unmute your mic and ask your question. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Is there any relevance of these ayat with the famous waqia of this Hazrat Abu Bakr Siddiq, where he has promised by himself that he will not going to help one of his relatives who was
Correct.
involved in
Yes.
accusation? Yeah.
So yes, that is a beautiful example set by the Prophet actually, and we know that. One of his relatives was his name was Mistah ibn Usasa to be precise, and he was someone who was being supported by Abu Bakr in the sense that he would give him a scholarship, a sponsorship for some time. And when this person actually got involved in falsely accusing the beloved wife of the Prophet, Aisha, of adultery, the incident of If, which is mentioned there. So Abu Bakr actually stopped supporting that person. And when this came to the knowledge of the Prophet said, well, the person is a poor person. Yes, he's done something wrong by getting involved in this false propaganda and being part of that. But that still does not take away from him the fact that he is a poor person. He needs some sustenance from you. So, I mean, you should still continue with your sponsorship, with your scholarship, whatever you can give to him. And I mean, as far as his mistake is concerned, that shall be taken care of in another way. So, this is a sterling example set by the Prophet that people at times they do wrong things. So, at times, people whom you're supporting, they are doing wrong things. So, that should not be something that should stop you. In fact, that should make you come closer to that person, even help him more, and make that person realize what wrong he or she had done. So, in other words, the Prophet has separated the sin and the sinner. So, we should not hate the sinner. Yes, we have the right to hate the sin.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Imran, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saab. So my question pertains to this priority in this charity which we have in this ayat. So it should priority goes to the individuals or to an institution. Nowadays, lot of institutions are collecting the charities. So what should be our priority, the individual or the organizations or the institutions?
I mean, there is no such rule of thumb regarding priority. It's the need of the hour, the need that should come before you. I mean, that at times individuals are very needy and you would like to help them. At other instances, there are organizations, charities, institutions which are helping people in an organized way. So basically, it's your call. Just see what best you can do in your own situation.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I have a chat question. Can zakat only be given to Muslims? And do you have to give zakat on jewelry you may have received on your wedding?
So there are two parts of this question. So zakat can be given to any needy person, regardless of his or her faith. This is a very prominent, a very grave misconception that has plagued Muslims. At no place in the Quran does the Quran say at any instance that the person who is in need has to be Muslim by faith. The Quran does not specify this. In fact, in the times of the Prophet, there was this public treasury, the Baitul Mal, and it was used equally for Muslims and non-Muslims. So that is an absolute, a misconception. You can give zakat to any deserving individual, whether he's a Muslim or not a Muslim. As far as zakat on jewelry is concerned, we've discussed this earlier also, that zakat is imposed on that jewelry which is bought for investment purposes, so that you can maybe sell it later on when the price increases, and then of course you can earn from through that. So that jewelry, if you have that, like for example you might have a brick of gold or some expensive metal which is normally used for investment, so you buy and sell it. So on such jewelry, of course, that jewelry is zakatable. But jewelry which is meant for your own personal purposes, like maybe for your own need, maybe sparingly, maybe all the time you're wearing it, or maybe for the need of your children, that you might pass it on to your daughter-in-law or to your daughter or whatever. So that jewelry is for personal consumption. All jewelry related to personal consumption is not zakatable. It is exempted from zakat. So the golden or the basic rule is that jewelry or anything that relates to investment is zakatable.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Saleem. I don't have any raised hands at this time, so I'll ask you a chat question. Which is the best app to learn Arabic, Dr. Saab?
Which is the best app?
App.
Best app. Oh, so there. I think that I did post some of these apps in some group. I don't remember which group. So there is a WhatsApp group on which I posted a few apps. But To be honest, I can tell you that because people have different phones, like the iStore and the Play Store. There are two different categories. So one is for Apple and the other is for Android phone. All that you need to do is just write Quranic Arabic learning in your iStore or your app, your Play Store. And the first couple of apps, they are all very handy, because they are apps that give you that placement. Because some of you might be knowing Urdu, and hence the reading of the Arabic is not needed. You can skip that part and go directly to the understanding part. Others who have an English background or don't have the knowledge of the Urdu alphabet, so they would need to be taught the Urdu alphabet also. So these are different apps, but I can tell you the first 5 apps that appear should be the one that you should look for. But I think that there is one I can recall off the top of my head. It's called the Learning Quran. It's called Learning Quran, something like that. And that's a good app that you can actually use. It gives you a placement test, which lets you know where you stand at the moment, and then you can build from there. So
Thank you, Dr. Saleem.
That's how you can proceed.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saleem. Ahmed, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
جی السلام علیکم ڈاکٹر صاحب. ابھی آپ نے ذکر کیا کہ جیسے جولری پر تو زکوٰۃ نہیں ہے، لیکن اگر ہم جیسے یہ گولڈ کے بسکٹس وغیرہ ملتے ہیں، ہم یہ رکھیں، لیکن اس میں نیت یہ ہے کہ یا تو وہ بیٹی کی گریجویشن ایکسپینس میں ہو یا بیٹی کی شادی میں گفٹ دینے کے لیے، لیکن وہ اس پہ انویسٹمنٹ بھی ہو رہی ہے کیونکہ وہ اس کی ویلیو بڑھتی جائے گی، لیکن ایونچولی اس کی شادی
انویسٹمنٹ کا یہ مطلب نہیں ہے. وہ تو قیمت تو بڑھے گی، قیمت سے بڑھنے سے انویسٹمنٹ مراد نہیں ہے. انویسٹمنٹ کا مطلب یہ ہے کہ آپ نے محض اس لیے لیا ہے، جیسے آپ کوئی پلاٹ لے لیتے ہیں یا کوئی بھی چیز لیتے ہیں جس کا مقصد یہ ہوتا ہے کہ بھائی سیل پرچیز مراد ہے، یہ بڑھے گی تو ہم بیچیں گے اور کوئی اور چیز لے لیں گے یا اسی کو ری بائی کر لیں گے. اس کو کہتے ہیں انویسٹمنٹ. یعنی آپ کاروباری ذہن سے وہ کام کر رہے ہوتے ہیں. یہ بات ہے کہ بھائی قیمت تو بڑھی ہو تو بڑھے گی، ظاہر ہے سونا جو ہے وہ تو بڑھے گا یا کوئی بھی کموڈٹی بڑھے گی، اس کو انویسٹمنٹ نہیں کہتے. وہ تو ایک مارکیٹ فورسز کی وجہ سے بڑھوتری ہو رہی ہے. لیکن اس کا یوز کیا ہے؟ اس کا آپ نے یوز یہ سوچا ہوا ہے کہ میں بیٹی کو اپنی گریجویشن پہ دے دوں گی یا اس کی شادی پہ اس کو دے دوں گی یا اپنی پوتی کو دے دوں گی، تو یہ سب پرسنل یوز میں کاؤنٹ ہوتا ہے. یہاں پہ آپ کوئی کاروبار نہیں کر رہی ہیں. تو انویسٹمنٹ سے مراد ہے کہ آپ سونے کا یا ایکسپینسو میٹل کا اس نیت سے اس کو آپ بائی اینڈ سیل کرنا شروع کر دیں کہ بھئی آئی ایم گوئنگ ٹو ارن آؤٹ آف اٹ.
تھینک یو ڈاکٹر سلیم. روحی رسول اپنا سوال کر لیجیے.
السلام علیکم سر.
وعلیکم السلام.
سر ہم سنتے ہیں کہ ایک ٹائم تھا کہ حضور صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم بہت رچ تھے جب ان کی شادی ہوئی حضرت خدیجہ سے، اور ایک ٹائم تھا کہ ان کے گھر میں پراپر کھانا بھی نہیں پکتا تھا کہ وہ اپنے گیسٹ کو وہ پراپرلی ان کے لیے کچھ کر سکتے. تو یہ اتنا بڑا چینج جو ہے یہ صدقات وغیرہ اور
میں آپ کو اس کی آپ کو میں ایکسپلین کرتا ہوں. جی میں آپ کو ایکسپلین کرتا ہوں. دیکھیے نبی صلی اللہ علیہ وسلم کا تعلق ایک متمول گھرانے سے تھا، یعنی اپر مڈل کلاس آپ کہہ سکتے ہیں، اور ان کی جو اپنی ٹرائب تھی وہ بھی کافی امیر لوگ تھے. اور اس کے بعد جب انہوں نے حضرت خدیجہ کی مرچنڈائز کو انہوں نے بیچا، اس سے بھی ان کو کافی آمدنی ہوئی. تو وہ بہت ویل اسٹیبلشڈ تھے، کبھی بھی ایسا نہیں تھا کہ وہ ہینڈ ٹو ماؤتھ ہو. مدینے میں جب وہ آئے ہیں تو وہ ایک حاکم کی حیثیت سے آئے ہیں، مدینے کے وہ رولر تھے، اور اس میں پھر انہوں نے وہ اسٹیبلش پرنسپل قائم کیا کہ ایک شخص جو رولر ہو اس کو عام آدمی کی زندگی اختیار کرنی چاہیے. تو یہ ان کا اختیاری فیصلہ تھا کہ رولر جو ہے ہی شوڈ لیو اکارڈنگ ٹو دا مینز آف این آرڈنری پرسن. تو یہ وہ زمانہ ہے کہ جب حضرت عائشہ کہتی ہیں کہ 2 دن تک چولہا نہیں جلتا تھا یا صرف کھجوریں ہوتی تھیں، کیونکہ یہ وہ زمانہ تھا جب اصحاب صفہ کے جو لوگ تھے یہ وہ لوگ تھے جو ہجرت کر کے مکے سے مدینے آئے تھے، اور یہ کافی بڑی تعداد میں مسجد نبوی کے سامنے ان کو وہاں پہ جو سمجھ لیں ٹینٹ لگا کے ان کو ٹھہرایا جاتا ہے. تو وہ آپ نے ذمہ داری اپنی محسوس کی کہ جب بھی کوئی چیزیں آئیں وہ سب سے پہلے وہاں جاتی تھیں. وہ کافی بڑی تعداد میں یہ لوگ تھے، انہی کو ہم اصحاب الصفہ بھی کہتے ہیں. اور وہ ایک چبوترے پہ ایک سمجھ لیجیے کہ کافی بڑا ایک ایریا تھا جہاں پہ ان کے ٹینٹ لگائے گئے تھے. تو اور پھر جیسے میں نے عرض کیا کہ یہ ایک فیصلہ تھا کہ انہوں نے کیا، اور اس فیصلے کو انہوں نے ایک اسٹیبلش پرنسپل کے طور پہ جاری کیا کہ عام آدمی کے لیول پہ مسلمان حکمران کو رہنا چاہیے. اگر عام آدمی افلوئنٹ نہیں ہے، عام آدمی اگر کھانے پینے کے معاملے میں اس کو کچھ ترس رہا ہے تو رولر کو بھی اسی کے مطابق رہنا چاہیے تاکہ اس کو عام آدمی کی زندگی کا احساس ہو. یہی حیثیت پھر بعد میں حضرت ابوبکر نے، حضرت عمر نے، حضرت عثمان، حضرت علی سب نے یہ اختیار کی. جب بھی وہ رولر بنے تو ایک عام آدمی کی انہوں نے زندگی اختیار کی، باوجود اس کے کہ وہ حضرت عثمان کے بارے میں پتا ہے کہ وہ کپڑے بہت بڑے تاجر تھے اور ہی واز ویری افلوئنٹ، لیکن ایز سون ایز ہی بیکیم دا کیلف تو انہوں نے پھر ایک اپنی زندگی کے معیار کو خود گرایا. تو یہ اختیاری فیصلہ تھا، تو یہ تضاد نہیں ہے. یعنی they were rich people that but they themselves decided that because they are now rulers of the society, تو ایک سوسائٹی کو صحیح فوٹنگز میں استوار کرنے کے لیے the ruler should have the same standard of living as the common man. So this is what they did. بعد میں حضرت عمر بن عبد العزیز نے پھر اسی چیز کو تازہ کیا. کبھی اگر آپ ان کی بھی ہسٹری پڑھیں تو آپ کو اندازہ ہوگا کہ وہ بھی بہت ایک امیر شخص تھے اور بہت زیادہ شوقین مزاج اس سینس میں تھے کہ کپڑوں کے معاملے میں اور چیزوں کے معاملے میں. لیکن جیسے ہی وہ خلیفہ بنے نیکسٹ ڈے سے انہوں نے بالکل اسی طرح سے بہیو کیا کہ جو ایک عام آدمی کی زندگی ہے. تو یہ ایک ہمارے حکمرانوں کے لیے اسوہ انہوں نے چھوڑا کہ یا تو آپ اس فیلڈ میں آئیں نا، لیکن اگر آپ اس فیلڈ میں آئیں گے اور مسلمانوں کے حکمرانوں کی زندگی آپ نے اگر اختیار کرنی ہے، ان پہ رول کرنا ہے، تو پھر آپ کا معیار زندگی ایک عام آدمی کے مطابق ہوگا. تو یہ ایک ایکسٹراڈنری چیز تھی، لیکن ظاہر ہے کہ ہماری نظروں سے اب اوجھل ہو چکی ہے.
تھینک یو ڈاکٹر سلیم. عمر اپنا سوال کر لیجیے.
جی السلام علیکم سر. میں نے جتنا سمجھا ہے قرآن مجید میں جہاں پر بھی ذکر آیا چیریٹی کا، وہاں پر اللہ پاک فرماتے ہیں کہ میں اس کا اجر میں دوں گا. تو وہ اجر جو ہے وہ آخرت میں جتنا مجھے سمجھ آیا وہ ملے گا. تو کئی لوگ اس کو جب وہ کہتے ہیں کہ آپ کو چیریٹی دینی چاہیے تو وہ اس کا ذکر کرتے ہیں کہ دنیا میں بھی بہت آپ کو فائدہ ملے گا یا 10 گنا زیادہ واپس ملے گی. تو اس کی کیا حقیقت ہے؟
دیکھیں ایسا کوئی رول آف تھم نہیں ہے کہ اللہ میاں نے کہا کہ لازماً اس کا اجر صرف آخرت میں ملے گا. اللہ تعالیٰ کہتے ہیں میں دنیا میں بھی دوں گا، آخرت میں بھی دوں گا. یہ صرف وہ اسپیسیفائی نہیں کرتے کہ لازماً دنیا میں دیں گے، آخرت میں تو بہرحال ہی مل جائے گا، وہ تو لازماً ملے گا. لیکن دنیا میں بھی بعض دفعہ مل جاتا ہے، بعض دفعہ نہیں ملتا، کیونکہ دنیا آزمائش کے اصول پہ بنی ہے اور اس آزمائش کے پرنسپل پہ کبھی اللہ میاں ریوارڈ کر دیتے ہیں اچھائی کو اور کبھی نہیں کرتے، کبھی اور آپ کی آزمائش سخت ہو جاتی ہے. تو اس وجہ سے ایسا کوئی ہارڈ اینڈ فاسٹ رول نہیں ہے کہ لازماً آپ کو آخرت میں ملے گا. آخرت میں تو لازماً ملے گا، لیکن دنیا میں بعض دفعہ مل جاتا ہے اور بعض دفعہ نہیں ملتا.
Dr. Saleem, I have a few questions in the chat that deal with zakat percentages and financial investments and how that works. And I was thinking that maybe I should post one of your lectures because you've already done a lot of work on this.
ہاں اگر کوئی ڈیٹیل سوالات ہیں تو اس موضوع پہ بہت سارا کنٹینٹ ہے، آپ اس کے لنک کو پوسٹ کر سکتی ہیں.
Okay, Tahira Khalik, please unmute your mic and ask your question.
جی السلام علیکم سر. سر مومنون میں اللہ تعالیٰ فرما رہے ہیں کہ برائی کو ایسی بات سے دفع کرو جو بہتر ہو، اور پھر اسی صورت میں اس سے پہلے یہ بھی ہے کہ برائی کا بدلہ لو تو صرف اتنا ہی، اس سے زیادہ ہو تو ظلم ہوگا. یہ برائی کا بدلہ لینے کی بات اللہ کی طرف سے یہ سمجھ نہیں آ رہی.
یہ دو باتیں الگ الگ موقع اور محل کی ہیں. ایک بات یہ ہے کہ ابھی آپ کسی آدمی سے کوئی برا فیل ہوتے ہوئے دیکھیں آپ کی طرف، جیسے مثال کے طور پہ کوئی آدمی آپ سے جیلس ہو سکتا ہے، کوئی آدمی ہے جو آپ سے کوئی زیادتی کر رہا ہے. تو اگر آپ یہ چاہتے ہیں کہ اس شخص کا دل تبدیل کریں اور اس کی جو جیلسی ہے یا اس کی جو رائیولری ہے وہ ختم کریں، تو آپ کو حق تو حاصل ہے کہ آپ برابری کے ساتھ ان کے ساتھ ریونج لیں یا ان سے بدلہ لیں. لیکن اگر آپ ان سے اچھائی کریں گے اور ان کی برائی کو آپ اچھائی سے، قرآن کے الفاظ یہ کہ ادفع باللتی ہی احسن، کہ ان کی جو برائی کو اچھائی سے دور کریں. جو وہ برائی آپ سے کر رہے ہیں اس کے جواب میں آپ اچھائی کریں. تو آگے الفاظ آتے ہیں کہ فَإِذَا الَّذِي بَيْنَكَ وَبَيْنَهُ عَدَاوَةٌ كَأَنَّهُ وَلِيٌّ حَمِيمٌ، تو وہ شخص اس کے اور آپ کے درمیان ایک دشمنی کا سا تعلق تھا، رائیولری کا سا تعلق تھا، وہ آپ کا ایک جگری دوست بن جائے گا. تو یہ صرف اخلاقیات کی طرف توجہ لائی گئی ہے کہ if you want ایٹ ٹائمز برائی کا سب سے اچھا سلوشن یہ ہوتا ہے کہ دوسرے کو آپ معاف کر کے اس سے نہ صرف یہ کہ معاف کریں بلکہ اس کے ساتھ اچھی ٹرم کریں، کوئی ڈو سم تھنگ گڈ فار دیٹ پرسن سو دیٹ یو آر ایبل ٹو سیکیور ناچ اپ مورل وکٹری. آپ اگر دل کو فتح کر سکتے ہیں تو اس طرح سے کر سکتے ہیں کہ برائی کی جواب کو اچھائی میں دیں. تو یہ ایک موقع کی بات ہے. ایک دوسرے موقع کی بات یہ ہے کہ کسی نے آپ کے ساتھ زیادتی کی ہے اور وہ زیادتی کرنے پہ تلا ہوا ہے، تو اب آپ کو اللہ تعالیٰ نے کو حق دیا ہوا ہے کہ آپ اس زیادتی کے برابر زیادتی سے اس کو جواب دے سکتے ہیں اور چاہے تو آپ اس کو معاف کر سکتے ہیں. تو یہ چوائس آپ کی ہے. بعض دفعہ ایسا ہوتا ہے کہ آپ یو ڈونٹ فیل لائک forgiving people for the hurt that they have caused you, or you think کہ بھئی یہ لوگ اتنے انکوریجیبل ہیں کہ اگر آپ نے معاف کیا تو دوبارہ سے یہی کام کسی اور کے ساتھ کریں گے. تو وہ آپ کو رائٹ ہر وقت موجود ہے کہ آپ معاف نہ کریں اینڈ یو ٹیک این ایکول اماؤنٹ آف ریونج. सो इट ऑल डिपेंड्स ऑन द सिचुएशन. कुछ लोग ऐसे होते हैं कि जो, जैसे मैंने कहा, जो इनकरेजेबल, तो आप चाहें तो उनसे बदला ले सकते हैं. लेकिन ऐसे होता है कि आम हालात में बहुत तो ऐसे लोग होते हैं कि जो बुराई कर रहे होते हैं आपसे, लेकिन अगर आप उनसे अच्छाई करें तो वो अपनी बुराई को भूल जाते हैं और वो अच्छे बन जाते हैं. तो ये जाहिर है कि आपका, इट्स योर ओन चॉइस, और इट ऑल्सो डिपेंड्स ऑन द नेचर ऑफ द पर्सन एंड योर ओन सिचुएशन एंड बैकग्राउंड. इट्स अ डिसीजन दैट यू हैव टू मेक योरसेल्फ. लेकिन ये दोनों ऑप्शंस हैं आपके पास.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. I do not have any more raised hands at this time, but I have a question.
Ji, before we sign out for today, I just wanted to have this known to all our participants that tomorrow we'll be having our final session, because Eid has been announced in some parts of Canada and I think in UK also on Sunday. So we will be having our last session tomorrow, inshallah. Ji, ab aap kar sakte.
Wonderful. Dr. Saleem, so I don't even know if this is it's a question or not, but in one of the lectures you had mentioned that in Jannat, the people will be there with their blood relatives, and they'll be able to choose their spouse if they want to. But what if your parents don't want to be together? Their spouses too. So then how will a child be with both his parents if the parents aren't
जी,
together?
वो तो एक खास सिचुएशन है ना. If the parents don't want to be together, then they'll not be together. I mean, but the children will have the option to be with both of them. जाहिर है अगर उन्होंने किसी और से शादी वहां लाके करनी है तो बच्चे तो फिर भी मिलने जा सकते हैं और साथ हो सकते हैं. साथ होने का ये मतलब नहीं कि चिपक के साथ होंगे. इसका मतलब ये कि प्रॉक्सिमिटी होगी. they'll be able to meet one another. So वो ये मुराद है कि भाई you'll be in touch, you'll be able to be together once again.
Okay.
If they are married separately, तो जाहिर है in their separate capacities बच्चे फिर भी मिल सकते हैं उनसे.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Okay, that's my last question. No more raised hands. And inshallah, we'll see everybody tomorrow for the last session. Khuda Hafiz.